humans, welcome back. I believe we're live. Let me just check. Are we live yet? This is the question I wonder the most. Are we even live at all?
Hello humans, welcome back.
Well, we are live. That was a nice get to know. With that said, let's get started. Today's stream is all about reacting to 6 insane awards websites. Yes, I've been doing this for the last 2 days, and yes, you're probably familiar with this format because we've done it a bunch on this channel. But with that said, let's go back to the 6 awesome sites that we're going to review today. The reason I do these streams is because there's so much incredible stuff going on in the world of UI UX design, and often designers will look at it and just get confused or intimidated by the different things that are going on all across the design spectrum of UI UX. And these streams often break down the common patterns, the common layouts, the common elements in all of these super cool, super advanced sites, which just ultimately makes it easier for all of us to get into the world of these complicated sites, understand them, look at them from all of their sides, rate them, and then finally maybe make some of them as our own. So I think this is an extremely fun video that I do all the time. I have the most fun doing it. I hope you guys do as well. With that said, let's get started, because why would we not? The first site that we're looking at today is, again, it's going to be a top favorite. This is the site that was used in today's thumbnail. This is superlist.crafted by gc.com. Check this out. That was an intro animation and it was fantastic. It just zoomed in from out of this bolt, and I love the 3D elements which basically move around when you hover over them. Did you just see that? You can move these elements around when you hover over them. I understand that sometimes it becomes a little bit difficult to know how these elements work, how the WebGL and the whole 3D animation spectrum works. If you guys are interested, let me know in the comments and I will make a video talking about how you can make these elements on your own that sort of move around, have a lot of fun. With that said, this is a cool layout in any case, because I think you can use spline and framer and a couple of tools in Figma as well to just achieve these looks, and I think it's quite fabulous and it's quite simple. This is going to be a fun one to build when we do build it. With that said, the layout that we have for today is actually quite fun. Very, very simplistic, very, very normal. Doesn't have the most complicated thing going on, but the things that they have done are executed to perfection. So you have a very, very simple title bar with a logo and a couple of links. You have a main call to action which refreshes every single time you sort of hover over the button. So this wave is a super cool button animation effect. And then you also have this logo iconic bolt sign going on everywhere you look at, and you also have the cookies agreement which you can just agree with. With that said, there is a ton of white space. There is a lot of legibility over here. You can see what's going on. When you select text, it changes to black, which is a theme color, and not your standard blue, which is also kind of nice. So this is on an overall spectrum, this is a really, really nice site from the first impressions of it. When you hover over this, it sort of goes into a whole animation, and then we have our next section. We're building the future of to-dos, built for team, made for people. This is the entire site, and it comes together beautifully with a couple of 3D effects, with a couple of really, really awesome things to look at. And it has these paragraphs of text which I was a little bit questioning, because sometimes a lot of text that they had to put on the side down, and making it easier to read through the titles that have sort of separated the sections. I would have maybe broken down these texts into a little bit of a bold highlight kind of format. But even if hold on, I think there's something wrong with the stream. Yes, this is still going. With that said, I'm so sorry you guys, that was a weird interruption. I'm quite happy with the fact that they've broken the text down into a certain side of its own, and you also have these 3D animations going wherever you look. That's kind of a nice effect to have in all of its honesty. And then you have all of these super cool animations going. If you guys want to see these 3D animations, it's very, very easy, done through Spline. Let me know in the comments or live chat. Just type yes and I'll make a video on it sometime soon. With that said, you have a really, really cool wave going which separates two different sections, which is quite an awesome thing to do. And then you also have the really, really iconic bolt with the masked image of the founders, and every single founder has their image sort of masked into it. This is the simplest thing you can do with Figma, and yet so many people don't know about it. So I think this is a good time to draw attention to how you can take these images and then sort of mask them very beautifully into these bolts. I have no idea what's happening. For some reason, this stream keeps on getting broken off, which is driving me nuts. Are we still live? Can someone just let me know in the chat? Are we still live? Wow, today's is a weird stream. Yes, we are still live. This is insane. Why are we always getting cut off? This is so weird. With that said, so sorry for the interruption. Very simple founders section. It does clash with the title a little bit. Maybe I would have wanted to see a white sort of background just so things wouldn't have to clash so much, but at the end of the day, it's not the worst thing in the whole world. And then I always love the very consistent use of the 3D elements which and animate on scroll. Like, this is like the easiest thing you could have done, and it's right here with 3D. So when you have a site that integrates 3D, the easiest thing to do is have those 3D elements animate and move on as you scroll, and it's quite easy to do, and it's quite fun to do, and it's just giving life to a static site, and it's so much fun, you guys. With that said, you also have text overlays on top of these 3Ds, and every single place that happens, there is no contrast issue, which is actually a big problem, because sometimes you have these images with a white element and then you have white text on it, and it becomes quite difficult to read. That's not happening, which I'm really glad about. They've put the text as an overlay on top of these 3D models, and yet it looks really good. It looks perfect. It doesn't look like it needs to have a lot of things done. The images get cut off with this nice sort of wave pattern, which is also incredible. And then you also have this really nice looking out for super people reach out section for the roles, which is once again, as I said, animating an entire 3D model or elements of it while we're scrolling, while we're looking at the site. This is like the simplest thing you can do to make your entire site interactive, and once it's done, it gives the whole new life kind of vibe to any site at all. And again, the weak point that I would still find with Superlist is the text that is there is sometimes not really broken down. There aren't a lot of highlights or important sort of words where you can just take your attention immediately. But still, considering all things, I think this is a really good way of just keeping things afloat and keeping the text afloat. Like, I've seen worse happen to text, and I've seen worse ways to format and put text on screen, so I'm just not complaining at this point. You also have the options to did you see that you also have the option to, when you hover over one of these, there is a sort of line that takes over from the bottom, and the whole circle over here sort of completes in its SVG. And this is like the most awesome stuff you can do. These are actually very simple animations. People just don't know about them. And just taking all of these things that we just learned a whole long time ago, and integrating them into a sort of thing where it becomes complicated now that you have 2 or 3 of these simple elements integrated, is just so refreshing to watch. With that said, I don't really have any major complaints up until this point. And then you have the stay updated, your email address sort of section. Then it says, definitely don't press this big red button, you guys. And this is the big red button I believe that they're talking about. This is just reverse psychology mixed with a little bit of humor. And this is something that I would want to see more of on the modern web. Like, I love the fact that they've used a little bit of sarcasm over here. I always encourage people to have a little bit of their own voice, whether it be sarcasm, even if it's kind of snarky, even if it's not the most civilized and professional. Just have a little bit of a tone of your own personality, which makes the users realize that the persons behind this project are real human beings and not a corporate organization. It is quite refreshing to have a couple of sites where you have a little bit of sarcasm, a little bit of humor. Maybe not the most complicated thing, but it's at least there, which I'm kind of happy about. And then you have a couple of other links which you can just visit from the down at the bottom. Every single element, and again, my only complaint here is sometimes this text keeps on getting lost in the black and white paddings of the different sections, but ultimately they make up for it with the animation that's happening. With that said, I don't really see any major flaws with the site. Every section on its own is a part of the same page, and it gets highlighted when the section changes. So this is the news section, and you can go back to the team with sort of a scroll on the top. A simple site, small site. This is short compared to most of the other sites that we see, but it's really comprehensive and doesn't really leave a lot of room for error. This is kind of the near perfect version of sites we're going to see on the internet, which is why I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. And the only reason I'm taking a mark off of this entire site is because at some point you see that they're not completely illiterate about breaking text down. So for example, right here they've broken down managing directors at .io, and so they've sort of highlighted the word io. So if there's something that needs to be highlighted, it is still getting highlighted. And I get that this is a link, but you could have either bolded some of the text or just made things a little bit more interesting. The text and the whole formatting was what took things away from me, and also the fact that this is a transparent header which often merges like it did for a millisecond there, or just clashes with these elements, making it kind of hard to read and understand. So when you have an element that's full of color, and when it goes behind a couple of these, it gives you a little bit of a problem. So I do believe that's the only reason I would want to cut anything off of it this at all. But other than that, this is one of the most awesome sites we've ever seen on these streams, and I'm super duper happy with it. The next site that I'm going to talk about is Happy Face, and the domain name is deathofmygeneration.fun. I am very interested in seeing what happens. Let's just let this thing load out. This channel has had, fun fact, more than 90 streams, and I'm still not getting used to the feeling of drinking water live on camera, because these streams are 1 hour, 2 hour long periods of time, and it's a lot of strain on the throat, and then you have to just power your way through. So sometimes you have to drink water, and I'm just really awkward when that happens on the camera. With that said, let's just go back to what we were doing. Deathofmygeneration.fun. The name of the site is Happy Face, as is visible right here. Let's get started. Very unconventional title, very unconventional domain name, very unconventional everything. The background of the screen shows a nuclear disaster or something similar, and I'm just confused at this point. So this is going to be a fun one. This is going to be something that's not very conventional. I think the site works with a lot of sound, but I'm just going to mute it because we're streaming live. But by all means, go down to the description, get this link, and explore around if you want to see the real sound. But it's going to be just as good of an experience with my commentary. With that said, this is the entire layout. You have a little bit of text, which I'm just going to read to you right now. Death of My Generation, brought to you by Jaguar Twin. What a weird font. I can't read anything. Bad job, Jaguar Twin. Turn your speakers up, enable your camera, put on a happy face. I have no idea why they're asking me to enable the camera, but I'm just not going to do, because that's going to interrupt the stream once again. Let's just start the show. Let's see what happens. Wow. What the hell was that? Can we just allow it this time? I'm just going to try. You must be on a device with a camera to see this. If this uploads my images to some weird place on the internet, I'm probably going to be in trouble. With that said, Happy Face. What's going on at this point? Wow. Are we even working? This is definitely very weird. You must be on a device with a camera to see this. I am with a device on a camera to see this. We can get an alternative camera. What the hell is going on? Let's just reload this site. Let's start the show. Happy Face. Wow, this is just it's just not loading. I've changed my camera back. My camera is enabled. This is so weird, you guys. There is a camera, by the way. So, with that said, this site simply resists loading. I have no idea what to do at this point. If I figure it out, the whole working of the site in future streams, I'll let you know. We'll maybe include this on some other build, but at this point I have no idea what's going on, and I'm just going to bring this to a pause because this is just senseless. 0 out of 10 at this point, because I just have no idea what's going on this site. Let's go to the third one. Quite a disappointing site from the last one. This is called accordion.net.australia, and I have high hopes, because just check it out. Animates into an accordion, animates out of the accordion, and now you have this really nice background video playing with a couple of links at the top, and then you have your logo at the bottom. Very classic stuff, very nice looking stuff. And as soon as you start to scroll, this text starts animating, which is incredible. And then you also have a couple of other links and details, important stuff, everything that needs to be here. The cross or the plus keeps on animating all of its moments, and that's quite fun. We're a tight-knit collective of artists and creative minds dedicated to crafting unique film and photographic works that entertain and engage. And I think I'm happy with the way they've structured text here, because it's easy to read, easy to understand, nothing too complicated, nothing too out of this world. So this is quite simple to do as an introduction. A ton of white space, an animating icon, and an animating element, and then a ton of really simple clean fonts used, so I just don't have any complaints with it. Let's go to the next section. This is now this cross in itself sort of animating and coming to motion, which is their selection of motion. And now you see Forever Found, which is, I believe, their product, all motion. Wow, there is no motion over here. What's going on? I think there was supposed to be some motion. Either it's really slow. This is my primary complaint with all of these sites. It just takes such a long time to load. It's completely egregious. Photography. Let's see what photography has. I have no idea. This is a single image, which is quite beautiful, by the way, from the looks of it. Summer's here. It provides you with a lot of specs and a lot of details and a lot of team. One thing that I am quite weirded out with is that they've sort of blurred the lines between light mode and dark mode. So light mode and dark mode do not exist here. The only thing that does exist is a weird mix of the two, so you can't choose one or the other. So it's quite difficult to read when you're in sort of a dark mode kind of setting, because the colors are keeping on changing every single time. But when your color scheme is only black and white, I can't really complain about it. With that said, this is quite a boring layout. So you have your fonts, you have your spacings, you have all of your specs, you have all of your details, but I am still a little bit disappointed because there isn't a lot of fun stuff happening. The only cool thing that we have over here is the animated accordion, and it's still not loading, which is honestly insane. You can shorten these images, you can compress the size of images using a tool called swoosh.app, and it lets you optimize your images for the speed of your sites. And yet I don't think they've optimized any images at all, which means it just takes a buttload of time to load any of these. So I'm just not going to, because at the end of the day, this is a limited time stream. And with that said, I'm going to try to look at the about page, hoping there's something good over here. A little bit of text. Maybe they could have done a better job at highlighting the elements, highlighting the way they've been structured. But with that said, it's not the worst thing in the world, not the end of the world. It's kind of good, kind of bad. Overall, I give this site a 5 out of 10. Reason being, on paper it has all of its elements right. It has a couple of things going that are good for it. For example, the font pairing is kind of nice, the whole accordion animation is kind of nice, but I am really struggling with the fact that these images are so insanely slow, which does make most people quit your site. So it's not a good spec. You can't make an excuse of only the fast internet speeds can access our site, because at the end of the day, the web is an accessible place. And when you go for websites and when you go to rate websites, for example, through Google Lighthouse ratings or any other standard ratings for sites, the fact that your first contentful paint or the first time your content on your site loads up is taking a long amount of time, is really slow, especially on lighter connections, it's just going to be a bad thing for you, and it just reduces the rating, which is why 5 from me. And also, the images are not loading. I don't have a full context. At some point, especially in the specs kind of section, the case studies section, there was a lot of boring stuff happening, and I don't want to say boring, but it was just not very interesting. Maybe because the images hadn't loaded, maybe because they'd never do. But what can we say at this point? This is a solid 5 out of 10 for me. Let me know if you guys think differently, because I'm still very committed to 5 out of 10. The next thing that we're talking about today is Contra Project Calculator. I believe this is going to be interesting to the freelancers in the audience, because Contra is coming up to be like the top platform, replacing Fiverr and Upwork for freelance UI UX designs as of now. And what they offer as their own project rate hiring calculator is going to be crucially interesting. I don't look at these sites before these streams happen, so I'm reviewing them in real time, and all of my feedbacks are going to be the first time I've ever seen this. So I was kind of saving this link for when we really had you guys in the audience, and it's taking a really long time to load. This was exactly my problem with accordion, and then the same exact problem happens with Contra. Maybe I'm on a slow internet, but how slow can it possibly be? It's at this point that I'm just weirded out. Wow. Either I'm living in the slowest internet area of the world, or most of these modern sites have a lot of work to do with their speed. This is so incredibly annoying. Speaking of annoying and somewhat good things, I today figured out the kind of routines that we're going to have on this channel for the live streams and the videos, and it's kind of a double-edged sword, because on the one hand, the stuff that we've got coming in this consecutive month, from starting with the next week, is kind of amazing, but also there is just so much work to do. So Me and the team are kind of horrified, but also this is going to be kind of a good event. Why are you not loading? While that's loading, I'm just going to go to the next site, fitonistapp.webflow. We're going to come back to Contra. Hopefully we are. Wow, everything has decided not to load today. This is kind of incredible. Wow, when are you going to load? Fitonist did load. This looks incredible. This looks really, really modern and really, really nice. The font is good. It's a classic sans serif. Very, very modern pairings. You have a lot of space around the corners. You have your 3D models blurred out in the background. Progressive blur going on in the background. And then you have your basic elements that are animating in their own speeds, especially when you start to scroll. Modern stuff, fancy stuff that works really, really well. And now you have these circles animating from the background. Check it out. This is so awesome, because the whole screen sort of animates. It starts by focusing on the center of the mobile screen, and then it sort of scrolls down. And I also have to mention, when you hover over these buttons, you have this really, really nice firefly light effect going, which I am such a big fan of. I'm going to steal it with credit at some future project, but this really, really is incredible. And then you have this really, really nice circles coming out effect from the background, and then you go to get the most accurate workout for your goals and modify it. I love the text. They've broken it down into a simple piece. It's not the most complicated thing in the whole world. Easy to understand. I already know what to do with this entire application as soon as I've loaded it, and it's overall it's a really, really good one to have. Shoulders, back, quadriceps, chest, hamstrings. You have all of these different custom made workout categories, and they animate on their own. So these sort of scroll as you keep on scrolling. They become big and small as you keep on scrolling. And then you have explore 500 plus different exercises. Either the spelling of exercises is wrong over here. This isn't even a design thing at this point. I'm not going to count it as some major point to take off, but either I'm really, really dyslexic all of a sudden, or this spelling is really, really wrong. So fix your spellings, fitonistapp.webflow.io. But other than that, as a design wise product, this is really, really great, because the whole animation is something that I'm a big fan of. You start with defining your goal, and check it out. The whole flashlight animation happens along with this firefly effect, which is awesome. They hijack your cursor with this really, really nice following light, which used to happen in jQuery when the times were old, but now it happens in Framer and Webflow as well. Quite incredible. Might make it on stream someday, only if you guys want. And then you also have increase muscle size, lose weight, track results. Check it out. These animations are so incredible, happening on their own. Text is going up and down on its own. Really, really nice as an animation. You can choose your style, home, outdoor. I love these pins. And again, a lot of what's driven here happens because you're scrolling. Many animations happen because you're scrolling, which also indicates if you want to make any sites like these, it might be easy to get started with how to animate with parallax. Parallax is when you have different animation speeds for different elements when you're scrolling. Get started with parallax, which is like the simplest thing you can do if you want to make complicated sites like these. All of them are in their own ways and directions using parallax animations to work. This is sort of a angled parallax, and then this is your normal loading in, loading out kind of thing. You can navigate through the 4 of these. I don't think you can click on them, which is absolutely fine, but this whole layout is something that I'm a huge fan of. It's kind of new, kind of different. It does have elements that we're used to, but it also does a couple of new things. You have this kind of flowered arc, which is sort of where the images are rotating, and then you also have them going blurred out and blurred in as soon as you start to scroll. You can track how you're progressing. And then a couple of these bentos. Again, I'm a super big fan of the way these bento grids work, just because they're just incredible to look at, and just call me a fool, but I love these bentos. And the most prominent thing that comes to mind when I think about bentos is apple.com's website. And I know it's not over here, but if you go to apple.com and if you look at any product that they launch, as soon as you start to scroll and as soon as you go after the 3D models, you will see Apple use the most brilliant bentos I've ever seen. Like it's just god level. And this is a small version of that, but Apple is way cooler. And I might open up Apple if you guys type out Apple in the live chat. Otherwise, you can just go and check it out on your own. With that said, big fan of the bentos. The color game is on point over here. They're using a gradient, but it goes from pink to blue to purple to green and then back to pink, and it just looks really, really good. Like, it's difficult to get pink and green and have it animate beautifully when you're using a gradient, but they do it. that's the beauty of it. I think this is one of the sites with, check it out, the parallax. These different layers are on their own layers. They're scrolling with different feeds, synchronized with Apple Watch. Coincidentally, if you check out the site of Apple Watch, you're going to find that there is a lot of super cool animating that happens. This is really really awesome, and you have all of these different screens going on right here. I love the gradient in the background of the text, and at the end of the day, this is a really really awesome site, an awesome piece. What people are saying, ratings and reviews, the moment we've been waiting for. Nicholas Robinson says, easy and simple to use, workout programs are easy to follow, results are visible in just a couple of weeks. It might have been beneficial to have the user's image over here if available, but check it out, you guys. These buttons are also using the same exact call to action button, firefly glitter piece that we just saw. Quite incredible. And I love the fact that they've included 1 4-star rating over here, because it realistically happens that if all of the reviews on the first page of your site are 5-star only and never 4-star, never 3-star, it brings into question the authenticity of the testimonial itself, because it seems like at some point it does seem like you're giving yourself the greatest review ever. I mean, if you have all 5-star reviews, then there's no point in faking that, but it does show off a level of authenticity when you have 4-star reviews in your ratings. I am a little bit disappointed that they don't have any images or avatars of the user. The plain username kind of seems unavailable, but with that said, not the worst thing in the world. And also, we don't have a Twitter or an Instagram or a place where they gave this review, which kind of calls into authenticity the review. So you could have had an Amazon review or something like that, but they don't, which is fine. But it just throws into realism the whole authenticity of the entire testimonial. Just putting it out there. Unlock all benefits. The pricing page, check it out, you guys. Green to blue to purple to pink gradient is used in this pin as well. It is used in this sort of hover bar as well. As soon as you hover over any of these cards, there is a simple line that goes from the left to the top. It just takes over that entire border, and it makes this entire thing so pretty. And all of these buttons are very consistent, amazing call to actions. Instead of bullet points, they've used these really nice emojis, which I love. I use them all the time. I use emojis for bullet points all the time, so this seems like home to me. And again, you have your super cool circles radiating out of the screen that we saw before. I will say this before, and I will say it in the present, and I will say this again later on. When you make something that's really really pretty, make sure to use it over and over again throughout the course of a single landing page. That is called consistency. So where in the beginning of this landing page we saw these circles radiating, they were a cool effect, and then they used it over here again at the bottom. This is consistency at its finest. They had these exact same button effects happening in the top CTAs, then they used it in their sliders, and then they used it in their pricing page. Again, top level consistency. I'm in love with the way the site works. You have all of these different sections, a standard incredible footer with these really really awesome rounded cards. Any card that is having a border radius gets to me. It just looks incredible. Social media also available. You can check out these links. But with that said, these all of these links are kind of going through this entire page. With that said, I believe this site deserves a solid 10-star rating. 10 out of 10 for me, because I don't see many things wrong with it. Before we go away, I have to throw in this final Easter egg that I just noticed. When you hover over any of these links, the line that comes in not only animates but also goes through a wave. So it's not a straight line. Look at it carefully, because you might just miss it. Check it out. This is really really a nice effect. The whole line sort of goes in a really wavy motion, like you've made it yourself as a hand-drawn kind of thing. Terms of service is a place where you would see it better. All of the text that happens in these highlights is a gradient, green to purple. Again, incredible stuff, because gradients like green to pink, green to purple are really really hard to do. This is a 10 out of 10 site for me. What do you guys think the rating should be? With that said, Fitness, you're doing an incredible job. 2 claps for you. Let's go back to our next site, which is Contra Project Rate Hiring Calculator. I'm getting really annoyed by the fact that this is still not loading. The next site that we're looking at is Jordan Gilroy's portfolio. Very very simple site, and it has a lot of really important details that I just love. You have your crest logo animating as a 3D image in the background. Good thing. You have these these animated navigation options, which is also going around, which is a good thing. And then you also have the name and the occupation of Jordan Gilroy, and then you also get the time and the date that they're experiencing right now, which I guess is a cool feature to have, especially if if you are present as a freelancer. You're not leaving the persons in front of you when they're from a different time zone wondering why you've not replied to their messages immediately, because from the persons who's typing this out, from the user's perspective, it might be the middle of the day, and from your perspective in the time zone kind of front, it might be the middle of the night, which is why it's nice to have these numbers in perspective. Highly recommended, and it just adds a level of proficiency that you wouldn't see otherwise, and it lets the user be empathetic to your time as well. With that said, the font pairing is really on point for me. A serif font that's thin, that's really nice looking, works for me. The whole sans serif vibe is also really good. The one thing that does unnerve me a little bit is the fact that these fonts are freakishly small, which is kind of annoying, and you have to squint your eyes real hard to look at them. But if you would just ignore it, it's all good. And as soon as you hover over any of these, the image takes over. And then again the only issue with these images here is, and this is an accessibility issue, you guys, not just a personal preference issue, whenever these images have text on them, which they usually do, this text and differentiating between the text of the image becomes really hard to know. And I think it makes it really difficult for us to understand what's going on in the site, especially from the point of view of someone who is not a seasoned designer or developer. Now, when you hover over these screens, you kind of see this whole effect where the about section sort of opens up, and then you have Jordan Gilroy and his dog, which I absolutely love. I love all dogs, no matter who and what they are, as long as they're not too violent. Sometimes I love the violent dogs as well. You have their family and everything else that you would want to put on their own about section. They design web design, and then there is a bunch of text, web flow development, bunch of text, animation interaction, bunch of text. Again, the only issue that I have in this site is the way they have put the text, and let me clarify what I mean by that. The font sizes in the hero page were a little bit too small, and now you have these huge chunks of text with no important sections highlighted, which kind of makes it difficult for us to read all of this text at once. But if you would just ignore that, it's kind of a good site. It's not the end of the world. Art direction, also a little bit of text, and then you have all of your different case studies which change their text as soon as you start to scroll, which is kind of a cool effect. But the fact that this text is so small makes it really difficult for us to understand what's going on. Again, I'm going to show you a really cool effect now where they're really lacking. While this text stays the way it is, as soon as you start to change it, this sort of thing changes, and it indicates the stuff that's going on in the behind. But it's just really difficult to understand. The fact that these things change on a progressive makes it really difficult for us to understand that there is a little bit of a change going on in your technology skills and the image over here. But overall, not the worst thing in the world. It's kind of good. Neocultural Couture and Sundown Studio and all of these super duper cool elements that we've had over here. Check it out. This is a really nice way of presenting your own portfolio projects. Like, I would recommend learning from it, getting inspired. And then you also have their achievements, design judge, and Simone, Teddy, whatever else. I have no idea what's going on at this point, but I'm just going to appreciate what they've done. I think these are all of the great sites that they've made. Again, great sites. Just going to say great sites. This is kind of incredible stuff. Let's collaborate. hello@jordangilroy.com. Text animate. There is a huge contact button, text that comes up at the bottom, and now you have all of these links. The way the text has been structured is getting my goat, because it's not very pretty. For some reason, the whole spacing, padding, text size thing with this text overlapping this text, and then I'm not selecting the contact word, even having a purple sort of highlight with the whole Z index not figured out, is just this is a good layout, but it's not a great layout, if you know what I mean. This thing is really weird for me. The whole spacing and the font sizes being minutely small is just getting my goat at this point. This seems like a site that wanted to go towards perfect, and yet for a multitude of reasons just fell short. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10, because we really do see techniques that we don't see before, especially this one. But this kind of has its own problems, because this Ruby Arrow project took 2 skills. The next project, which was Sister Mary, took 4 skills. But when you're in the middle of the do, it kind of feels like Ruby Arrow took 4 skills to someone who's not very used to looking at award sites on a day-to-day basis. So from a really daily use point of view, I have my problems problems with it. I have my doubts with it. This is a very, very confusing thing. I got confused for a second. Many people will get confused, and you're just making life really, really hard for yourself. I do love the fact that they've included the time. It might have been beneficial to include where it was from, although they've put down UK, so that's kind of self-explanatory. I'm just going to say this is sometimes you might want to have your time kind of labeled over at the top, because if someone is watching in from the UK, I don't know the thing with their time zones, but if there's more than one time zone, then they might think that you're talking about their time zone and it's actually your time zone. It gets confusing at some point, so you might want to have a little bit of a description over here. The whole fonts and the way they've sort of decided to put things, decided to animate every little thing, and it sometimes looks really, really freaky to me. Check it out. This is also where you don't know what project it is, and I get that this is the middle of the scroll, but most people won't understand, especially if this is a frozen frame. So I'm just saying this has its own level of innovations, and then it has its own concerns with those innovations. Tried to animate, didn't work out properly, so I'm just going to give this a 7 out of 10. With that said, you guys, I understand today that there have been like 2 different sites: The End of the World, Death of My Generation, and Contra Project Rate, which were 2 different projects that we weren't able to do. So I'm just going to get 2 different really, really nice looking projects from my list. Yes, I do have a really weirdly long list, and we're going to look at 2 sites that were really, really incredible today. This is dash.com and also vana.com. This is the next site that we're going to review, because I at least want to do 6 in one stream, because we've got a bunch of sites I'm really, really happy to show you. And this is called dash.com, almost the best tech company, with an asterisk, with the tooltip that says ha. And it's kind of nice. It's kind of nice. It has its own personality, which I love. It's kind of nice. It has a bunch of elements which I'm ready to talk about, but let's just explore what the ha says. The power of almost. We believe in the power of almost. It drives us to be better, inspires us to keep exploring, and offers lots of room for growth. Again, I think this is really, really self-introspective of them. This is a nice kind of thing to add, because having the kind of fake self-confidence to say the best tech company is going to have many people kind of looking at you sideways, kind of throwing a sideways impression at you, if you know what I mean. Having a little bit of personality going on over here. Bring me up, grab me, close me with the tooltips. I think it's really, really nice. Shows a lot of personality. Let's talk about the color schemes now. I know that was a sudden jerk of a transition, but let's talk about the color schemes now. The color scheme for this UI is black, and then the little light yellow, green, blue, and when you hover over one of these elements, you get these, and now you can grab and drag these elements across the screen, which is actually so fun. It's like being in play school again. You can just drag these elements, work with them. It's so fun. You can change the light mode and dark modes, and then you also have this constant tooltip going on with you. You can choose to contact, stories, careers, crew, work, home, about, and again you also have this really, really weird logo, or the careers icon, I guess, which is kind of weird to look at, kind of fun to look at, but I'm just going to let this be. Let's go to the next section. You also have this squarey kind of cursor hijack effect going on in the background. Not the biggest fan of it, but it's not the worst thing in the world. I think you can keep it. I am a big fan of the tooltip, however. About Dash, we're aiming to change the world the way world works by creating exciting tech that revolutionizes job boards, reshapes temporary staffing, rethinks recruitment by challenging business as usual. Again, fun stuff. You can grab this stuff, move it around. Why Dash? Everyone here deserves quick, hassle-free access to the main jobs that make the world go around. Again, fun stuff. You can move it around, work with it. Super duper fun. Work, we change, and this is kind of throwing me off, the whole transition of it. This text was the last piece of text that I read was kind of a bunch of things to read, and I'm not entirely sure if all of it makes sense. Like, it would make sense to simplify the wordings a little bit, but with that said, a lot of really, really cool things going on, and I think there's a little bit of chaos in the site as well, which I'm not completely against, but the text does not break down, especially when it gets lost behind these screens. We're looking for a something. See, this is what's getting my goat now. You have some text that's hidden behind these images, and it's so hard to look at. We're looking for something, new faces with bold ideas, ambitions, eager. Now they've finally had some text that being highlighted, but now that the text is being highlighted, we're getting rid of the text entirely. Willing to up, ready to Dash for greatness, I was trying to censor the whole word and then I sort of messed it up. Join us, button animation going. Again, I'm just trying to comprehend what's going on this site, because I'm still not sure. They've just taken so many effects, tried to integrate them into one huge pile, and this is just not working for me. I loved the whole tooltip effect that they had. I love a couple of the animations that they did have. I love the way that they've done a couple of things, but this whole thing is just, it gets too much, especially when your major text gets cut off. It's just a little bit too much. You have your projects. This is a really, really nice ladder kind of layout. You have a lot of these texts. You could have highlighted the important words, but even when you didn't, it kind of looks fine. You have these marquee tags that are continuously scrolling across the screen, which is nice to look at. With that said, this is just about everything. Check it out. This text is getting cut off, which may be a stylistic choice, but when it gets blocked off completely, I think that's when it really starts to get me and it really starts to annoy me. This image either did not load or wasn't present at all, and that's also weird. It takes a really long time to load, and also it might have been beneficial to have the person's head over here, so you could have used CSS image fit or fill to sort of adjust these, but they haven't done it yet. The cropping is really weird on this. I think they've tried to integrate so many effects on one single site, and yet the finishing to detail the last image of the details hasn't been taken care of entirely, which is why the rating of this entire site becomes really difficult, because this could have been a really nice crop from the top of the person's face, and yet they kind of messed up on it as well. Like every single place you look at, they've added a little bit of spacing, they've added a little bit of the cool effects, but every single place that you look at, there's always also something that lacks every single place that you go to. You can show or hide this navigation bar, but at the end of the day, you guys, this is just a lot of animation and many important things getting cut off, the most important of which was this text kind of getting cut off. So I think this is the one side that I'm really, really confused about. I would want to take, even if you're watching this in the future, comments from down below. What do you think we should rate this site? Because at this point I'm really confused. I'm going to give the site a solid 8 out of 10, and I'm being generous here. Reason being, I can truly, as a designer and developer, appreciate the work that they've done in terms of the tooltip, in terms of this special effect. But I think the only reason I'm taking 2 points off is because the execution isn't on point, especially when text start getting cut off, when you have all of these different elements that were meant to be fun and meant to be easy to work with, and yet something feels off to the user. It probably is off, and I think if they just took a couple more minutes to take a look at the finishing touches to make sure the experience was almost as smoothless as it was intended, and it was just fun for the user to work with and not confusing, they could have had a solid 10. So this got really, really close. Attention to detail is the one thing that was missing, which made me say 8 out of 10, but otherwise solid job, you guys. I'm not going to complain a lot today, because all the concepts were there, and then it was just a little bit finicky from that point on. So I'm just going to give this a very, very generous rating. Last site of the day, modern, old school, and yet fun, Vana.org. Simple header, simple video in the background, simple animation going on, really, 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 really simple stuff. Open network for user-owned data, really, really nice copywriting, simple cards, nothing too complicated, simple hover effects. I think this is the kind of site that beginners could actually make on their own with a couple of really, really cool little effects learned. So this is like the easiest barrier to entry, which is entirely the reason this was even on my list in the first place. This is a site that I have my eyes on because it does a lot of really, really simple steps, because as a beginner you can understand having a simple navigation bar. Like anyone could have a header, a button which kind of animates a little bit, and all of these different menus and all of these different navigation links, and yet there is a little bit of an animated feel, animated SVGs, animated buttons that make it a little bit more complicated than any normal static site. So as far as that is concerned, I think this is a really, really good site. This animation SVG could be a video, could be done through common HTML, CSS, UI, UX design, but at the end of the day, this is actually a really, really simple kind of layout, because you see this 60/40 layout all the time. The text isn't super duper animated, the color scheme isn't the most complicated in the world, it's just black, white, gray, black, white, blue. or a different variation of the grays, and it's really simple to look at. Maybe they could have benefited from a better color scheme over here, but at the end of the day, when you have the right fonts and when you have the right things going for you, I think this is a really simple, nice, small site. And the reason I'm including this today is because this is the challenge for you guys watching. Try to replicate this site as closely as you can, and then leave that link or that Figma file in the comments, and I'll kind of rate it in a future video. With that said, this site is a solid 7 out of 10 for me, because it takes all of the common principles that you use in standard web design and adds a little bit of an animation, a little bit of a special font, a little bit of a special effect. This isn't the most complicated site, no one is putting it in that category, but on its own, it's a really nice thing for us developers, designers, as new beginners to try and replicate. And I can guarantee that if you go close to replicating what the site looks like, vana.org, you're going to have a lot of fun with it. You're going to learn a lot of the skills that take you to the next level with it. This has been the 6 sites that I reviewed today. Again, all of your comments, all of your feedback is welcome in the live chat and in the comments. This has been our entire stream today. I will see you again tomorrow reviewing 6 other awesome sites, same time, 9 p.m. Indian Standard Time or 3:30 p.m. GMT. Until then, good night, goodbye.